Good Thursday morning to all of you who are in here. Wow, this Friday's Eve. Hopefully y'all are doing well and excited. We've got a great conversation today. Y'all know, I don't even know how to say this. We're going to be having a conversation with my favorite senator and future Lieutenant Governor Greg Dolezal today. We got a lot to talk about and get into. I promised him I wasn't going to do a preemptive victory lap, so we'll try and take it easy today. But we've got so much to talk about, whether that's data centers, the bunker, or this runoff that's going to be taking place. It's going to be a fun conversation. So make sure you guys stick around, tune in. And if you have any questions, drop those in the chats always. But before we get into the show, let me say what's up to the people. Shout out to everyone who's in the building. Of course, first, my beautiful, awesome, amazing Amy E is in there. Y'all see her. Go show her some love and support her over on X as well. The link is in the description. Mr. Brown's in here as well. Good morning to you. Taco Tuesday's in the building. Good to see you in there, man. Shout out to Taco Tuesday. It's going to be a great time. You guys know, as we start every show, I'm going to beg you to do something that is free and takes less than a second, and that's to like the video. Please, that helps the channel continue to grow. Lets the algorithm know you guys are enjoying the show. Shares a video of the channel and this live stream with more people. 4 weeks, less than 4 weeks before this runoff takes place, I need you guys to do everything you can to share out this video, because we got to get the word out about the amazing work that Greg Dolezal has been doing. So it's going to be very important that you guys do that. And it's free. Okay. Just like the video. I know you can do it. I know you're going to get great information. Have a good time. If you're feeling extra generous, you can share the video as well. The link to share, all you have to do is click the share button, and that'll give you access to share to any social media platform you're on. And you can even share via text message. I also will be reading super chats as we go throughout the show. So thank you to everyone who goes the extra mile and sends in a super chat and supports. And if you want your voice to be heard, that is the best way. I see Virginia Wiley is in the building too. Thank y'all for being here. And thank you to everyone that's liked the video so far too. Nearly 300 plus of y'all have liked the video, so I appreciate that. All right, let me get a sip of water, because as you guys can tell, I'm super excited. I got to chill out. We are going to go ahead and get into our conversation here with the man himself. Y'all give it up and show some love. Back in the building for round two. Greg Dolezal is in here. Good morning, sir. Thank you for being in the building, man.
Eric, what's up, man? What's up, Amy E? Thank you all for having me. Good to see you guys.
I appreciate you being here, man. Well, and congratulations making it into the runoff. I know we're going to get into the conversation about that here in a second. You've been putting in the work in every way. I mean, just in your current role and leading up to your role as Lieutenant Governor. So thank you for all that you're doing for Georgia. And it's exciting to see you in this position for sure.
Yeah, we're thrilled. It was an unbelievable campaign, because you had 5 well-known existing members of the General Assembly, 2 ladies that both ran great campaigns as well, that had great ideas. I actually just got off the phone with Takosha Swan, and
nice.
we always knew it was going to be a fight, man. And I got in the race last, and so there were a lot of headwinds that we had. Some people had basically a 6-month head start on us.
Yeah,
but we led on the issues, and I think that people want to see elected officials that are talking about things that they care about. And I think that that's what kind of propelled us into this runoff. And that's what we're going to continue to do for, I don't know what we got here, 26 days, I guess.
Yeah, I know it's close. And I mean, not even that, but the people can see and relate to the fact that you're in the trenches, you're on the street, you're looking into researching, understanding what is going on in the state of Georgia is affecting everyone's lives. And I think that's appreciated. And I know it's shown in the voting as well. So let's talk about the runoff conversation. So a lot of people may not even know what that means. Just explain how that process works and just how you got here in the first place.
Yeah. So in Georgia, if you don't get to 50% in a race, the race goes to a runoff between the top 2 vote getters. So in our race, I was at 23. John Kennedy was at 27. I was able to edge out Blake Tillery, David Clark, and Steve Gooch, who all ran great campaigns. And so now John and I head to a runoff, along with Mike Collins and Derek Dooley, who are in runoff in their race. Burt Jones and Rick Jackson are in a runoff. The runoff is literally 4 weeks to the day after the original primary election. And here's the key. Some people are confused on this. I actually saw some bad info on this on social media. Yeah. Even if you did not vote in the primary, you can still go vote in the runoff. Exactly. And so it's not like only the people that voted in the primary get to come out. Anybody can come out and pull a Republican ballot on June 16th. One other interesting difference as well is for the runoff, there's only 1 week of early voting. So June 8th through June 12th is the opportunity for early voting. So if you know you're going to be on vacation the week of the 16th, you can go out the week before and get your vote. And if you can't do either of those things, you can always vote absentee as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll be talking about all of that leading up to this week after week, because we want to make sure that we do our part in helping you get into the office, because I think, as you said, there's a lot of misinformation about what happens in a runoff and how effective people's votes can still be during this phase of it. So I appreciate you mentioning that and bringing that up.
Yeah, and this is it, man. This is, you go from in my race, you go from a 7-person scenario down to 2.
Yeah.
And so it's a binary choice now. And so people choose who they want. And it's either John or I will go represent the Republican Party as the nominee in November against the Democrat. I think there's a lot of reasons why I'm the best person to do that. But the great thing about this race is there is contrast between John and I. And John's my friend. He actually was my assigned mentor in the Senate when I first got elected 8 years ago. But we're different. We've got different ideological perspective on things. Our voting records are different. Our leadership style is different. And there's a lot of people that will vote for John for various reasons. We're just going to go make the case as to why we think we're the better option. And hopefully we get the 50% plus one. That's the goal on June 16th.
That's right. And one of the reasons we talked about, even people may have been voting for John, is because they think it's actually John Kennedy, the original John Kennedy, and they're not sure what's going on here. Like, how is John Kennedy running for office in Georgia, which is a hilarious
Yeah,
point.
They're like, man, if this guy came back from the dead, I think he deserves my vote. Or if he somehow is the senator from Louisiana and he's running for lieutenant governor in Georgia, that's worth my vote too. Yeah, we saw. So in the polling, we were actually seeing that we were outpacing John in the polling of those that had made a choice. But the undecided voters coming into this race was massive, because, Rick and Bert's race, $120 million spent in that race. You had, Buddy and Dooley and Mike battling it out, and it just kind of sucked a lot of the oxygen out of the room for the lieutenant governor's race. So 40% of the people, which is 360,000 people, walked into the ballot box on Tuesday unsure who they were going to vote for. So if I actually joked that I was going to, before the race, legally change my name to Donald J. Trump, and have my name on the ballot as Donald J. Trump. And
there you go.
Because it is an advantage. I mean, I'm not going to lie. John's
That's
got
true.
an advantage with a well-known name. But I think that your Republican primary runoff voter is going to do their due diligence. These are the voters that really care. If you're going out and voting twice, then you're going to dig in. And so I think that when they dig in, they're going to see a pretty strong contrast between someone who's been a conservative champion in the Senate, somebody that's been willing to stand up for the president in 2020, somebody that was willing to go after Fani Willis, somebody that was willing just on Monday to sue Brad Raffensperger to try to get access to this bunker. And that's, that's kind of, I think, what's going to set me apart.
Yeah. And I want to talk a little bit more about those contrasts in a second, but I do want to ask you about something when it comes to the procedural side of just the voting. Historically, when there's a runoff, is there less voters that turn out? Are there more voters that turn out? And what are you looking at when it comes to the amount of votes, or how that would work going into the runoff?
I just looked at this data this morning.
That's
so
awesome.
The last time there was a lieutenant governor's runoff was in 2018, and 8,000 more people voted in the runoff than voted in the primary.
Wow. Okay.
That was the year that Governor Kemp and Casey Cagle were battling it out in the runoff. And so I think that drove a little bit of turnout. And so I don't know what's going to happen. There was a little bit of fall off in another runoff race that I was looking at. I think that it was maybe 2024, perhaps. I forget what year that was, but surprisingly, I figured it would be like maybe 80% of people come back out. But it looks to be about the same amount of people show back up.
All right. Well, we got to keep doing what we did last time, it looks like, and hopefully a little bit more. But I want to talk about you and Mr. Kennedy in contrast. What are your thoughts on, again, some things you've mentioned, the leadership style, the work that you've actually put in on the ground, as to why you're the better candidate in this case?
I think that a lot of governance comes down to what your instincts are, and it doesn't come down to how you vote on 80 or 90% of the issues.
Yes.
By the time a conservative bill like school choice or constitutional carry or a tax cut makes its way to the floor, almost every Republican is going to vote yes.
Right.
Election integrity, almost every Republican, if you can manage to get it to the floor, is going to vote yes. The real question, I think, is who are the fighters that are fighting to get those things to the floor? And who are the fighters that when something happens and you've got to make a really, really quick decision, what's the instinct? Is the instinct to go hide under your desk and kind of wait for, some consultant or somebody else to tell you what to do? Or are you willing to stand up? I'm reminded of the 2020 election. There were only 4 senators who stood up and called for a special session. It was Brandon Beach, Burt Jones, William Ligon, and myself. The Fani Willis stuff, when that happened, the predominant, disposition at the Capitol was to let the court system handle it, or let the prosecutorial oversight commission handle it. And I said, that's not good enough. We've been given plenary power in the Constitution to investigate the affairs of the state. And if there is any affair of the state that people want us to investigate right now, it's the Fani Willis situation. So I would add to that, though, Eric, a couple of key votes. This data center thing that we're going to talk about this morning. I voted not to renew the data center tax credit. And John voted to renew the data center tax credit.
Yeah.
I voted to force by law for data centers to pay their fair share, their pro rata share of the grid expansion. That's really, a multi-billion-dollar endeavor for Georgia Power and the power companies. And John voted with the power companies. I voted with the people. And so there are a number of contrasts there that we'll be able to talk about. And I'm sure he's going to draw some contrasts as well.
Yeah.
But I've never voted for a tax increase. And, that's something else that sets me apart in this race as well.
Yeah. And talking about that, specifically the thing that caught my attention even before, as you mentioned, you announced that you were running for lieutenant governor, is the amount of work that you just put in on the ground, boots on the ground, whether that came to voting, exposing some of the registration locations. That was absolutely ridiculous. And another instance recently with the voting that took place just this week, you having to fight for essentially the state election board to be able to get access to this bunker. And I'd love for you to talk about that entire situation as well.
Yeah. 2 weeks ago, I didn't even know there was a bunker. If you would have told me that there's a bunker and that no election observers are allowed and the state election board was not allowed, I would have. In fact, when I got the phone call from Debbie Fisher and she explained to me what was going on, and she said, we're looking for people with standing that would have, because in Georgia, you have to have what they call standing, which means you have to have an injury in order to pursue a lawsuit.
Right.
I said, well, let me read it. But based on what you're telling me, this sounds insane. And I would absolutely be willing to put my name on that. And so what we found out was there's a room called the election night reporting room. And there's no votes counted here. This is not where the tabulation happens. But what happens is the 159 counties send their information to the Secretary of State. And the Secretary of State's team meets in this election night reporting room. I guess they call it the bunker because allegedly it's underground in some government building somewhere. And the state election board was trying to get access to this room. Members of the state election board have been invited in previous years to be in this room. And some of the, I guess what I'll call the more conservative members, were raising a flag that they wanted to be there. They actually wanted bipartisan members of the state election board to be able to just be in the room to observe.
Right.
Because keep in mind, this is the board that does rulemaking around elections. And so if you're going to do rulemaking, you need to be able to observe polling places. You need to be able to see the bunker. You need to be able to see the certification process.
Right.
And they got word on Friday that they were not going to be allowed. And so they were looking for help for someone to file a lawsuit. We stepped up. We won the lawsuit. We got a temporary restraining order at 9:00 in the morning on Tuesday. We were so happy. And then later that afternoon, right after lunch, the secretary's lawyer ran into the courtroom in a polo shirt and jeans, I'm told, and argued a technicality that we don't think should necessarily apply to the restraining order.
Right.
And the judge reversed his decision, and they were not allowed in that room. We still have a pending court case, though, and that will go to a hearing on the 28th of May, because we still want those same people to have access for the June runoff and the November general election, which is going to be really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seemed like it was just a minor detail. Again, I'm not an attorney, but from what I understand, it looked like there was a 5-day window that they were supposed to have notice. Does that sound right? Or is that correct? There's a provision of the code that if you sue the state, essentially they give a 5-day notice, but
That's for a hearing.
Right.
And what our lawyer's position is, there was no hearing. We received the temporary restraining order. So our lawyer's position is that 5-day rule should not apply to what they call the paper, which would be the TRO that we received. There was no hearing. There was no ex parte hearing. The judge made a phone call to our attorney, asked a question about how long we believe the order should be in place. The judge issued the order. We were in communication with the secretary's lawyer the day before. So on Monday evening, our attorney had talked to the secretary's attorney. So it was not like they were clueless as to whether this was happening, but they latched on to that 5 days because they wanted to run out the clock on us. And they ultimately prevailed in that, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, can we state the obvious and talk about the Secretary of State's office? Why the pushback, man? At this point, I mean, we're putting it right in front of people's faces that there is so much resistance when it comes to transparency from the Secretary of State's office. Why the pushback here?
This has been a struggle for me. Really, after 2020, there was a lot of questions and a lot of people reacted and responded in different ways. But even beyond that, when we got the CISA report, which is the Cyber Intelligence Security Administration report on the Dominion software 5.5A, we immediately got on the phone with the secretary's team. I remember it because I was on vacation in Mexico. And the CISA report basically said at a minimum, what the first recommendation was to update the software because those particular 9 known vulnerabilities had been resolved.
Right.
And the secretary's team told us they were not going to upgrade the software. And I was just shocked. And ever since then, I've continued to just be surprised at the posture. It has not been a collaborative process. It has been very combative. I don't think that we have been combative. I think we've just been trying to find resolutions. And by we, I mean Lieutenant Governor, the General Assembly. And it's just been very, we haven't been able to have a good working relationship where we felt like we've been moving the ball down the field on behalf of the people of Georgia.
Yeah, well, thankfully, as we saw in this last election, it looks like we're going to have some changes in that Secretary of State's office, hopefully for the better. And with that being said, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the current landscape of the election that took place this last week. What are your thoughts on everything from your race to the Secretary of State's office and some things that stood out for you during this election?
I think, honestly, the biggest thing that stood out was the rise of Burt Jones and the strong closing argument that he made. And he finished up 5 points. There is not a single prognosticator that I talked to that said Burt Jones was going to win by 5 points. Basically, the question going into election night was how much had Burt narrowed the gap? There was this really, when Rick Jackson, who's a friend of mine, came out and announced, even he popped up to like 38, 39% in some polling, I think. And Burt's team was able to narrow that gap. I think that a lot of people thought Rick was going to be up by 2, maybe 3, maybe 4. And that would have been a good showing for Burt. But for his team to come out with a 5-point lead, I think was really strong. I don't know that anybody fully had predicted what would happen in that Secretary of State's race.
Yeah, it was tough.
It was a talented field. I saw Kelvin King out all over the state. I know that he worked hard. I thought that he had a pretty good shot to make the runoff. He came up a little short, and now it's Vernon Jones and Tim Fleming. So there'll be hopefully some good debates and contrasts in that race, so we can see how each of those men would want to lead that office. And then Mike Collins has been the front runner ever since he got in the race. And the real question on the Senate race was, does Dooley edge out Buddy to make the runoff, or does Buddy kind of stay in that second place where he had been for a long time? And Dooley surged there towards the end, got into second place, and now you'll see Mike versus Dooley down the stretch. And there's good contrast in that race as well. So I think the voters are going to have the opportunity now to go, all right, this person or that person. And that is a fundamentally different process than kind of choosing from amongst a sea of people.
Yeah, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Jackson Jones situation, because there's been a lot of conversation there. And as someone who will potentially be working hand in hand with one of them, what are your thoughts on that race, and maybe something that you think voters could look out for in that race specifically?
I want to see him debate again.
Yeah, me too.
They had that debate, and there were guys on the debate stage that I didn't even know were running for governor.
Yeah.
And so there were guys like Ken Yasker and some other folks that I knew were running, but there was one I thought was super impressive. I think his name was Tom. I forget what his last name was, but he was very articulate and well-spoken.
Yeah.
But I want to see a one-on-one debate. I think that John and I need to debate one-on-one. I think that Vernon and Tim need to debate one-on-one and really help voters hear the competing visions. And what I want to see, frankly, out of the governor's race moving forward is these guys really amplify what their vision is for the state. And there's been a lot of mudslinging. There's been a ton of money spent. I mean, this is an unprecedented amount of money, maybe in the history of the country, to see that much money spent in that short of a period of time. And there's been a lot of mudslinging. I want to see. I want to hear the vision, what the policy differences are, what the ideas are, and that's really what I'm hoping for there.
Yeah, and you've even mentioned, just to go back to your runoff that you'll be involved in here shortly. You mentioned a couple of big points that we're going to get into, whether that's with the data centers and talking about voting, that are contrasts between you and your now opponent. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on what are some focal points that you would focus on. Let's say we get a debate set up next week that you would want the people to know about and focus on when it comes to voting on this runoff.
Yeah, I mean, my posture is not going to change in terms of what I talk about. I still think that we're in a fight to save Western civilization. I think that we save the West by saving America. I think that Georgia is ground zero for that fight to save America. So I've talked a lot about our insane immigration policy in America. I've talked about the nightmare situation where the average age of a first-time home buyer is now 41 years old, and that you've got 32-year-old young married couples having to compete with Blackstone in the purchase of their first home. I think that is a existential threat to the American dream, and that's why the middle class is, I think, really on life support today. I'm going to continue to champion universal school choice. I hate property taxes. I think they're un-American. The income tax being the highest in the Southeast here in Georgia is a massive problem. Parents, not bureaucrats, need to be at the center of the child's education. So I'm a huge champion for universal school choice. These are all things that I fought for as a senator that I'm going to continue to elevate. As for the contrast, there's some of those things that John and I agree on. I think it's a different style, though. Do you allow those things to come to you, or do you actively get out front and be a champion for those issues? And I've got a history of being a champion on the issues I think is going to set me apart in this race. And
that's the biggest thing that I mentioned this before, you getting out in front of things, understanding, talking to the people specifically. That's a great segue into the conversation about the data center issue, because that's something that, again, you've been out in the field, you've been working on, talking with Ansley Brown, for example, that we've seen. And this is something that's really bringing a lot of attention to not only what's going on in voting here in Georgia, but just the massive amount of money and infrastructure that's going into these data centers. So I'd love for you to speak on that subject and talk about the work you've been doing there too.
Yeah, this is a white hot issue in Georgia. Citizens are angry. They feel like their local governments are not listening to them. They have no idea how Georgia has all of a sudden become like the epicenter for data center expansion. And the way that Georgia became the epicenter of data center expansion is the 2018 vote to incentivize data centers to come to Georgia by giving them what has now become a multi-billion-dollar tax abatement. That vote came up for renewal in 2022. I was one of 9 senators that voted against it. It was actually bipartisan opposition to that. Senator Kennedy voted in favor of continuing the tax abatement. I was against it. And then the other thing that's happened, the other big fight in Georgia has been a little bit behind the scenes, is to whether or not we should put into law a requirement that data centers, not residential ratepayers, homeowners, pay for the cost to expand the grid to accommodate the doubling of our infrastructure that we're going to need to accommodate the data center approval that happened, or I should say the expansion approval that happened last December. And I was a strong advocate, was on the records from saying that homeowners should not be paying more money in their power bill because we have to build more capacity for data centers. And John took the opposite position from me on that one as well. And so in this fight, it's multi-layered. And the eminent domain piece, Eric, is really, really problematic.
It is.
And when I went down and met with Ansley and her mom, I was frankly horrified by what I saw as the amount of land that the utility company is going to grab to put these transmission lines in. And they're going to be bulldozing these people's houses. They've been threatened with eminent domain. and they feel like nobody is listening to them. And so I wanted that family to know that people are listening. I've been working with John Rich, who President Trump has named as an envoy of, I think special envoy for American land preservation. And John has been working with the power company and federal partners to try to find a different option to allow these families to keep their property, because there always is a different option. It may cost the company a little more money, but there is a different option down there in Coweta County.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see how this played out, because we've heard conversations even that Ansley has done with interviewing people in Coweta that are talking about, oh, well, we didn't realize we voted for this and now we changed our mind, which is just such another important point for people to be aware and understand what's going on, because now you're facing eminent domain and many feet of your property being taken away, in some cases even a third of these properties being taken.
Well, part of the question that's happened in these local areas too is whether these massive projects are going to have such an impact on the local community should go to a referendum or not. And because you had a 3-vote majority down in Coweta County that put this in place, and people feel like the voices weren't heard and special interests were the only voices that were being listened to. And it is a balance these commissioners have. It's tough. These projects do bring massive tax revenue to the community. And we do need to have, obviously, technology here in America and not overseas in China. And so I think it's a matter of finding that balance and ensuring that we fully understand not only the power usage, but the water usage, the impact on our infrastructure. And, I think that same data center that is in Ansley's area was the one that had siphoned off 30 million gallons of water, and nobody knew about it until the water pressure was low for the homeowners. So we've got to get serious about confronting this problem. But this does get to the contrast question. Are you a person that's afraid to have a conversation because maybe it's tough to ask Georgia Power a question because they are powerful? Are you willing to ask Georgia Power the tough questions and force them to the table to find solutions for our constituents that are really struggling with the reality of what's happening right now?
Yeah, and that's been the biggest thing with this data center issue for me personally, is because I can see both sides. I can see and understand that we don't want these data centers to be overseas. We don't want to have to outsource these types of situations to where we need this information and we need proximity to these data centers, right? But on the other hand, you have eminent domain, and a lot of these people are dealing with their properties being taken. So it's like, where and how do you find the balance there? It's a tough one. Completely
agree. Ansley went and shot a video with another lady that I talked to. They're about to lose their swimming pool and have the easement come 12 feet from their bedroom window. And they're not going to be. You can't replace that. That you might as well pay them 2 times what the home is worth and let them go find a different home somewhere, because they're not going to want to stay in that home. And so you're right. It is a tough issue. It's a challenging issue. Our job that we run into all the time as legislators is balancing of rights. And you've got to figure out how to balance rights in these situations. But the problem is that for so many politicians, their first instinct is to go where the donor money is, and to go where the people are that take them on vacations in the summer, buy them a steak dinner at Chopped Steakhouse, and they don't feel like, they don't even frankly hear from or interact with average everyday citizens. And so they've a lot of elected officials seem to lose their way.
Yeah, and going back to the election conversation, I didn't even think about this earlier, but July 1st is around the corner. We got to talk again about the QR code situation. Are you hearing or seeing any movement on that when it comes to getting this fixed before the general election?
Well, the governor has called us into a special session for 2 reasons: redistricting and dealing with this election issue. And the House and Senate passed 2 different bills this year. The House sent a bill that would have moved to paper ballots after the November election. I carried a bill in the Senate that was going to move to paper ballots for this November's election. So that was kind of the impasse that we were at, and it frankly drug on for far too long. We did not get the House's bill or see the House's bill until day 40, which I think is a structural problem that I'd like to solve. And it's not just the House, it's House and Senate, that we've got to get better about passing these bills sooner. So that's going to be an active. We go back on June 18th. We go back into special session. So 2 days after the runoff, we go back to start to work on these issues.
Oh, that's great. And I know you've worked on a couple of bills that we talked about in the past when it comes to the voting. What are you hoping to see happen, or the conversation to be had specifically when it comes to the issues with the QR code and moving forward towards potentially paper ballots?
I want to get to hand-marked paper ballots as quickly as possible. That would move Georgia from being an anomaly of the only state that votes statewide on Dominion machines to voting the way that 2/3 of Americans vote, which is on a hand-marked paper ballot. I would like to see us get rid of drop boxes. I would like to see very strict laws around voter maintenance. I call that the top of the funnel. You mentioned the Fulton County videos that I did. I was piggybacking off the hard work of people like Jason Frazier, who dove into these voter rolls and found just a mess in Fulton County. And there's a mess of voter rolls around the state where you have people illegally registered to vote at UPS stores, storage units, abandoned buildings. It's insane. There's hundreds of people registered to vote in Fulton County where the birth year is listed as 1900, which means they don't know what the birth year is, which is obviously makes it very hard to check someone's ID when they walk in to vote. I would like to see us move closer to election day and not election month. I think that the fact that early voting starts a month before election day is far, far too early. And I would like to frankly see us go towards a requirement for people to vote in person with a photo ID unless they're in the military, sick or infirmed, or traveling for work, because it's the most secure way to vote. And I think that we need to have as secure elections as possible.
Well, I appreciate it, man. I'm so excited to see how this plays out. I thank you for all the work you're doing again, because like you said, there's been a huge contrast, not only just between this lieutenant governor race, but you and a lot of people who are running. You've actually been putting in the work and communicating and giving a voice to the people. So I appreciate it. I know everyone else watching here in Georgia does as well.
Thank you, man. I do want to end by saying you've been so gracious to have me on the show multiple times. We've become friends through the screen, and you have put your voice behind mine and been super supportive. And I could not thank you enough. So thank you for having me on. You know, there's a lot of people that don't kind of use this new medium, and that don't like to go on podcasts and stuff like that because it's uncontrolled, it's unscripted. But I think it's really valuable what you're doing, because you allow people to see their elected officials in a way that really shows you who they are. And so thank you for your friendship and your support.
No, it's an honor, man. And again, is there anything you want to leave with the people? Because we're going to be talking about you for the next 4 weeks and beyond. So going into the runoff, what's something you want to leave them with to be in mind of?
This is going to be a word of mouth race. I can't tell you how many. I know you had this happen. How many people do you think texted or emailed or called you and said, "Hey, who should I vote for again?" I'm sure you had dozens, right? Maybe 50, 100.
Yeah. The
people watching your pod are those people in their communities. They're the people that people are saying, "Who's that guy that I should vote for?" So tell them to vote for the guy with the weird last name, not the dead president, and we'll spread the word.
I love it, man. Thank you so much for your time. Y'all go support and show some love to Greg Dolezal. Go to the website. The link is going to be, it's in the description. We'll drop it in the chat for you, and make sure y'all get out and vote. We've had too many conversations of why it's so important. Y'all, please make sure you do that. Thank you, Greg Dolezal. Appreciate you. Future Lieutenant Governor Greg Dolezal is the title. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
All right. Y'all show some love. Again, so many support, so many good words for Greg Dolezal. I appreciate y'all showing support, and we're going to drop the link for you guys in the description as well. Amazing. And it's such great insight. I mean, we could sit here and talk about the election, I think, for an hour, but you can hear from Greg Dolezal that he's so passionate about Georgians. He's so passionate about the work that he's done. And we showed many examples of the work that he's actually putting in for the people here in Georgia. We need him in there. I appreciate him for sure. So thank y'all for the support. We got a celebrity in the building. Look at my guy. The lead attorney is in here. Hope you guys are doing well. Shout out to the lead attorney. So good to see him. Someone who's here in Atlanta, here in Fulton County. If y'all know, you've been watching the content, and he appreciates the conversation we're having. Shout out and salute to the lead attorney, my guy. It's taught me so much when it comes to making great content, and it's been a great example of that as well. The GOAT over there. Y'all go support him, showing some love. Amy dropped the link for y'all in the chat, so make sure you go support and subscribe to the lead attorney's channel. Just dropped a dope video the other day too. So shout out to the lead attorney. Thank you so much for the support, man. I appreciate everything that you do, And thank you for coming here and joining us as well. And the lead attorney actually had something to say on that. We'll get to a couple super chats. He said, yes, let these centers pay for their own cost. They are using our state as a dumping ground for these centers. Big money is running over our citizens. Lead attorney. I meant to mention this to Greg Dolezal. We'll talk about it the next time we get him on the show. 26 data centers under construction in Georgia right now as we speak, as we're talking, and 52 are proposed. So there's a lot going on with these data centers. The lead attorney is not he's putting it lightly when he says that Georgia is a dumping ground for these data centers. So again, Georgia, we talked about other states that are dealing with this as well. Arizona, we talked about Virginia. You guys need to understand how this is going to affect you, especially if you're in a situation where you may have property that you want to have as generational property that you're passing down. You may be interested in purchasing property. Understand how this is going to affect you and understand who you're voting in and what they believe in and what they support. Because we saw someone who was an elected official, look his people in the eye and say, hey guys, we're moving forwards with the data centers. If y'all don't like it, you can vote me out. Sorry, deal with it. I mean, it's a lot of people, as you heard, have a good argument for having more data centers, for keeping the data centers in place. And some just think it's better for the community overall. And if a couple people have to give up a third of their property, it is what it is. Woo. Interesting stuff. Shout out to the lead attorney in here. Y'all go make sure you support that man. Let's read a couple super chats and we'll get into our next segment here. Y'all said the channel volume is the volume low? Shouldn't be. I think I got a sneeze coming. Shout out to Nana Bananas in the building, has been a member for 18 months. Oh my goodness. She says, great interview. Keep up the good job. Good luck, sir. Yes, good luck to Senator Greg Dolezal. And we're going to be out there showing them love and supporting with our vote as well. I'm going to get in there, vote early, and make sure that my vote's counted. So make sure y'all do that as well. Thank you, Amy, for dropping the link to lead attorney. And shout out to Nana Banana for being a member for 18 months. That's commitment right there. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We've also got my guy, Harvey F. Davis III, who has been involved in Fulton County and Atlanta elections for a very, very long time. So shout out to him for the 5 bomb. He says, we all need to finish the job and return to the polls and vote for Greg Dolezal. I 1000% agree. My favorite senator and will soon be my favorite lieutenant governor. He's just putting in the work. You got to support somebody who's actually doing it. And it's not just the political thing. It's not just him. Oh man, I got to start getting out here and working so I can make sure I look better to the people. Nope. He's done so much and gone above and beyond for the people of Georgia that you got it. How can you not support someone like that? So please make sure y'all do that. Thank you for the support, Harvey F. Davis. He does so much supporting here and always gives great insight into what goes on in our elections as well, which is super important. So thank you so much. And yeah, thank you to Amy. Y'all go to gregdolezal.com. We've got, let's see, some more comments in here. Greg works for the people of Georgia, and I appreciate him so much. Yep, I agree. Greg believes in the people, not the government, and he's shown it. He's not just talking. He's not just saying what he's going to do. He gets to talk about his resume and what he's actually done. And he's done so much and brought visibility to a lot and helped us understand ways we can get involved too. So let's see. What a great guy. Love all his thoughts. Yeah. It's a fine line somehow. We need to figure out quickly or China will control AI. Yeah, that's the conversation too. I think we can have that conversation on another show. But just how do we solve this data center problem? Because like it or not, we're going to need them, guys. I mean, if you want to keep using your Gemini, if you want to keep using your iPhones, your Android, if you want to get on your computer, if you want to store your pictures online, I mean, we gotta figure out a solution for the data centers. My son said, can't we put them in the ocean or on the moon? I was like, oh man, that's a great idea. But how are we going to get there quickly? Because the amount of time it would take for the infrastructure to catch up to the need is the issue. And I know he was having a hard time understanding that, but it's tough. And that's why you see, as the lead attorney said, Georgia becoming a dumping ground, because you've got these private companies that are trying to keep up with the demand. And a part of that is making sure you're able to store and manage the data. So it's going to be a tough one. We're going to keep talking about and have the conversation. And maybe my son will be the one that'll actually come up with the solution for how we can get efficient, low cost, low interrupting data centers. Well, maybe it'll be him. We'll see. Organize with other states, set boundaries about what is and what is not acceptable. I know some people have mentioned the federal government owns 30% of the land in the United States. Now, what that land's being used for, I think you'd have to dig a little bit deeper into that. But federal government's got a lot of land. People have said, put them on federal land. Stop taking our property. You don't need to use eminent domain. Put them somewhere else. But you run into issues there as well. So I live in Abilene. Hopefully I said that right. I live in Abilene, Texas, which is ground zero. People are angry because of the cost of housing, but also when the power goes out. Yeah, not to mention, I mean, you talk about the cost. We hear Georgia Power saying, oh yeah, we're not going to make your power bill go up. You guys are going to be fine. I was like, well, for how long? For how long is that going to happen? Because you may be giving them a credit right now, but once those data centers are up, I mean, who's going to be responsible for the cost? That's a big issue. Shout out to CG Beats in the building too. Good to see you, man. Easier said than done. The logistics are daunting. That's a fact. Yes, that's a fact. Use solar power out in the desert to power them. That's true. Stick them. You're saying stick all the data centers in the desert. Yeah, we could put them up in the mountains, maybe catch some rainwater. I don't know, guys. It's a tough one to talk about. But we're actually going to get into our next topic. If you guys haven't yet, please make sure you like the video. I know y'all are going to have a great time on the show. Likes are free. So go ahead, like the video. It takes less than a second to do, and it really helps us out a lot. So thank you to everybody who's done that so far. We've got some updates here when it comes to this Tyler Robinson case. This is going to get interesting. In case y'all haven't heard about this case is going to be one of the biggest cases possibly of our generation, especially considered who was involved. The tragic shooting of Charlie Kirk. We'll get into it. So Tyler Robinson is facing some interesting issues when it comes to what is going on with his criminal case, because now it's being said that Tyler Robinson may be in trouble when it comes to his former roommate slash boyfriend slash girlfriend. I don't know what the situation was there, because there may be information and a video of Tyler Robinson getting into or talking about what he planned to do. So let's hear from KUTV out there in Utah that's going to talk about what the judge is saying in this case and how this is going to affect Tyler Robinson. Check this out.
Well, welcome to 2 News at Noon on this Tuesday. We start with that court hearing for Tyler Robinson, the Southern Utah man accused of killing Charlie Kirk at UVU last September.
Robinson was in court today for a hearing on sealing some evidence in the case and closing portions of the hearing to the public. Liv Kelleher was in court. She joins us now with the latest. Good afternoon, Liv.
Good afternoon. Yeah, that's right. Today's hearing really focused on two main issues. Again, both of which deal with the media's involvement in this case. First, did the state violate a court-ordered pretrial gag order by speaking with the media about pieces of evidence in this case? And second, the defense's motion to close portions of or the whole preliminary hearing. The first half of the day really centered heavily on that contempt issue. Now, the defense is arguing that the state crossed a line by speaking with the media, going on Fox and Friends to discuss the ATF's ballistic report. Now, if you remember, that report came out in full and was unsealed in April, but it was first referenced by the defense back in January. That report dealt with the fragments of the bullet found in Charlie Kirk's body and said it could not conclusively be matched to the suspected murder weapon, but it also could not outrule that weapon, and that those bullets could match that weapon. The state is arguing that the defense has misrepresented this report, leading the media to believe that this exonerates Robinson, and they say they have a right and a duty to correct the record. Take a listen.
There was a tidal wave of media garnering more than 10 million views in a matter of hours that mischaracterized the evidence, that misrepresented the evidence, that misled the potential jury pool as to what the evidence was.
And I guarantee they're talking about Candace Owens.
That
Shocking,
media, of
I'm
course, reached Utah County. It was widespread, and it created an undue risk of prejudicing or tainting the jury pool.
Wow.
As a result, the Utah County Attorney's Office had the ability under Rule 3.6 and the duty as a zealous advocate to respond and to correct those mischaracterizing statements.
Mr. Robinson's defense team, and I've said this before, has strictly adhered to the principle that we will have no contact with any media and we will not make any statements to any media entity of any type. And in the same way that Mr. Ballard apparently was getting this influx of media inquiries, so are we every day.
Yeah, and not to mention that there's been such a major push for Tyler Robinson and his defense team to not even allow cameras in the courtroom. They don't want people to see it. There was an issue with Tyler Robinson being shown in handcuffs, and they don't want the media involved at all because they think it's going to bias the jury. So that's what a lot of this pushback has been. But we're going to get into shortly why they're trying to withhold some of this information, because, again, it doesn't make Tyler look great.
And we never, ever respond.
Judge Tony Graff did not issue a ruling on this yet. That is set for June 12th. And if he does decide to open an evidentiary hearing into these contempt claims, that will happen on the same day. Now, the second half of the hearing focused on the defense's request to close portions of or the full preliminary trial. They argue that there will be information in this preliminary hearing that ultimately won't be admissible into court in that full trial, and that if that information is made public, it could taint the jury pool and encroach on Robinson's right to an unbiased, fair trial. Now, the state argues that this should all be done in the open and misinformation breeds within the darkness, but they are amenable to closing portions of this sensitive information, including the video of Charlie Kirk being shot. Now, an attorney representing the media argued that the media, us, are a proxy to the public, and the public, via the media, has a right to see everything that happens in that preliminary hearing, and that they should remain to keep this open. Now, the judge will rule on that on June 1st, and Robinson will appear via WebEx. Reporting live in Provo, Liv Kelleher, KUTV 2 News.
All right, and of course, we're going to be there to report on this on June 1st. So now let's actually talk about what's going on with Tyler Robinson and his roommate, because it's looking like the roommate is not only just giving up text messages and notes that were left on Tyler Robinson's desk, but now possible and potential evidence and video that could be bad for Tyler Robinson. Check this out.
This is expected to rule June 1st on 2 defense motions, one asking to close portions of a July hearing to the public, and another requesting sanctions against prosecutors for making out-of-court statements about evidence in the case. Both legal teams arguing over the issue. Listen.
How it is that Mr. Ballard came to be going on this media tour, because that gets to the seriousness of the misconduct and the types of sanctions that are appropriate.
Usually, this is performed in the courtroom, but occasionally it must also be performed in the media. An attorney cannot stand idly by while his client's legal rights are undermined and trampled upon by mischaracterizations of the evidence.
Wow.
Criminal defense attorney Josh Ritter was in the courtroom to hear both arguments. He joins us now. And Josh, as you well know, being an experienced attorney, you get a feel when you're in a courtroom that you can't get when you're just watching it on TV or reading about it after the fact. So did you get the sense, being in that courtroom, that the judge is inclined, let's start with the sanctions motion, to sanction the prosecution for talking to the media?
They don't like the media at all.
I don't think so, and I hope not, because I do think that the motion is not without merit. I don't know if I go that far, but I don't think it rises to the level of actually granting sanctions against the prosecution. I think what we're seeing here more than anything is this continuing hyperfixation by the defense on the perception of this case and the perception of their client outside of the courtroom. They're very concerned with how is he being perceived by the media, what things are being said about him to the media, and that's where this request for sanctions is coming from. They had a problem. They took issue with the prosecution simply correcting the record about an ATF report regarding the ballistics in this case, where the prosecution was simply saying, no, the media's got it wrong. Here's actually what that report is saying. Not really commenting on their client at all, but that alone was enough for them to try to ask this judge for sanctions.
And a similar thread to that, Tyler Robinson's lawyers are also asking the judge to keep the viewing of some evidence in the preliminary hearing private. So why would Robinson's lawyers be pushing for this, and what do you think the judge does here?
Because it makes them look bad, obviously.
Again, it comes back to they're concerned with how people outside of the courtroom are going to perceive this.
Yep.
Many times what is presented during a prelim is not necessarily evidence that will be presented or evidence that will be presented in the same way at a trial. What I mean by that is sometimes you're allowed certain levels of hearsay to come in during the prelim because you're trying to move things along, streamline things. This is not a hearing to determine guilt. It's a hearing to determine probable cause. But the judge handles that, and it happens all the time. They are not taking issue with the way that that evidence will be presented. They're taking issue with the fact that cameras are going to be able to show it and that the public will be able to see it. And they think that that somehow will affect the ability for their client to have a fair trial. Yeah. Again, like I said, they seem to be very preoccupied with how the media is portraying this and how the public is perceiving it, rather than being concerned with the facts and evidence against their client inside of the courtroom.
Yeah, and I would imagine, you guys will have to let me know what you think about this. In most cases, people are watching this and saying, why won't they just let them show it? Why are they giving such pushback? Well, maybe it's because he's guilty. So I think either way you do it, it's not going to make Tyler Robinson look good. If you fight to not show the information, it's probably going to bias people and they're going to think you're hiding something. If you do show the information and it's not great for Tyler Robinson, a lot of people are going to look at this and say, dang, I knew it. Innocent until proven guilty, of course, but not great for the defense team in this case.
One of the witnesses that the state does plan to call that we
Shout
have
out
now
to Candace
learned
Owens.
is Robinson's roommate and lover, Lance Twiggs. And that brings me to this question, Josh.
Lance.
Are there any privileges that apply to a girlfriend, a boyfriend, a lover? Because we all know that there's the marital privilege that can be used. But in my experience, and again, I haven't done this since 2008, but you can't get protection if you're just a lover. What say you?
It's a good point.
Yeah, that was a shocking moment. That was the first time that we heard that he's not actually going to testify, but they do have a recorded interview that they plan on playing during that prelim. And you're right, there is no privilege that exists. So any conversations that they had are certainly going to come in, and I imagine he's fully cooperating with investigators and the prosecution team, because I will be honest with you, there is an argument to be made that perhaps he knew more and should have done more ahead of time, but it sounds like for now he's playing nice with the prosecution.
Yeah, and they talked about this, they being the FBI talked about this when this first went down, saying that, yeah, Lance Twiggs has been great, he's been cooperating, and it's been fine. But it seems like it's not going to testify, but we have a video of that statement, which will be interesting, especially if we get to see it before the trial actually takes place. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments in the chat. Does this change your view about Tyler Robinson at all? Do you think it's not going to make a difference and this guy's probably going to end up either spending life in prison or getting the death penalty? Let me know what you think. Shout out to the gang. We still got 1,200 of y'all in here. My goodness. And we've got some breaking news I've got to get to in a second. This breaking news is crazy and something that we have not seen in the history of this channel. So we're going to talk about it in a second. This situation is absolutely wild. Let me double check and make sure I've got this set up, because I'm still in shock about what's happening with this case. So let me get to it. I want to double check and make sure I didn't miss any of y'all's comments. Thank you to everyone who's in here saying good morning. Good morning to those of y'all just stopping by. Did Fanny's lover get protection? Well, he happened to be a special attorney prosecuting a case, so he wasn't just the lover. But yeah, watch the video. They were moving evidence around seconds after. Yep. be all you can be by watching ClassE. Shout out to Steeler Bud, man. That's dope. Thank you. Hey, listen, we're just trying to give the information, all right? Burt stood for election integrity since 2020. Yep, media will always get it wrong if there's plausible deniability and clicks into. Ain't that a fact? Shout out to Steeler Bud. That is absolutely hilarious. All right, let's get into this next one because roll Scooby breaking news. Yep, I see y'all in there. This is crazy. Hold on a second. I gotta update the title so we can get right because I'm still in shock about this. And honestly, guys, because it's breaking news, I don't know exactly how this went down. So we're gonna watch it play out in real time on the show. This is wild. So let me get Ebony Parker up here. Where is she? I know how to picture Ebony. All right, let's talk about it. So we've been covering this case when it comes to Ebony Parker. Who is Ebony Parker? We'll get into it. So we've been covering what happened in this case with Ebony Parker. Ebony Parker is an assistant principal who is at a school. A 6-year-old who had been a troubled 6-year-old, according to testimony, brought a gun to school. Allegedly, according to other teachers, Ebony Parker knew about the gun, or she didn't do her due diligence in getting and researching and figuring out if the kid had a gun or not, let the kid go about their day. And the 6-year-old kid ended up shooting their teacher. So the teacher, she got $1 million, multi-million-dollar civil lawsuit awarded to her. But now Ebony Parker, the assistant principal, is on trial and is facing charges, obviously, of neglect, not doing her job, and in somewhat creating a space for this child to have a gun at the school. But we are hearing news, and there are reports that Ebony Parker's entire case, all of her charges are being dismissed. This is insane, something I have not seen since we've been on this channel, that the entire case is absolutely over. Let's go straight to the trial. This is happening right now and hear what the judge has to say and why this case is being dismissed. Insane.
Good morning, everyone. Are we ready to call the case of Combo versus Parker? We are. And to the media personnel, the buttons that we have to press to turn on the audio are all in place? Okay, thank you. All right,
crazy.
So the case of Combo versus Parker. For the record, let it reflect the Commonwealth attorney is present, Mr. Jenkins, with Ms. May. Good morning to you both. Good morning. The defense is present, Mr. Rogers and Mr. T. Good morning to you both. Good morning. The defendant is present, Ms. Parker. Good morning to you both. We rested yesterday. Is there anything you need to address this morning?
Yes, Your Honor, I have 2 matters.
Okay, yes, sir.
The first is that the court yesterday, as I understood it, we agreed to admit the full and unredacted interview between Dr. Farish and Dr. Parker. I needed time to just place that on a USB drive. I have done that. It's on Madam Clerk's counter there.
This is insane, guys.
I understood at the time that the court had admitted it, and I just needed to provide it. But if the court had not admitted it at that time, I am moving to reopen and admit it as Commonwealth 6.
Any objection?
Not any objection to reopening for the purpose of admitting that. That's it.
Okay, so great. Commonwealth is reopened, and we will admit it. Does Madam Clerk have it now?
Yes, it's
okay.
right there.
All right, and this will be 6, Madam Clerk? Yes, ma'am. Okay, so admitted, and again, this is just the full video of what's already a redacted version in evidence. Okay, and now that that's done, do you rest again, Mr. Jenkins?
Yes, we rest the reopened case, yes.
Okay, and the second matter?
The second matter, Judge, is just as a preliminary matter, I understand that the defense, pursuant to their own subpoenas, intends to call as their witness several witnesses that have already testified, including Ms. Williams, Ms. Kovac, Ms. Farish, Ms. West, perhaps others. And I just want, as a preliminary matter, to point out Jones v. Commonwealth 2023 VA App, Lexus 294, decided May 16, 2023, which holds that it is not proper for the defense to do any impeachment when it calls its own witnesses. And so I am asking the court to instruct the defense not to do any impeachment and not to recross on matters that they already had a full opportunity to cross on. But I certainly would not object to them eliciting new evidence in their client's favor from those witnesses. But in terms of recrossing witnesses they've already crossed, that would not be proper. They're here pursuant to the defense subpoena.
Yeah, 6 years old, guys.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Response?
Yes, Your Honor. We would be asking, in the event of calling these witnesses, that they be that we be able to examine in this hospital.
And so ultimately, we will cross that bridge when we get to it. You all are entitled to call whatever witnesses you wish, and if they meet the qualifications to be declared hostile or adverse and be treated accordingly by impeaching and or leading questions, then if again they meet that statutory criteria, then that will be allowed. So Mr. Jenkins, I understand your objection now, and it'll be ongoing, and when we get there, we will address it. But again, if they meet the criteria for being a hostile witness, the court will allow them to be treated as such.
I understand.
All right, thank you. Okay, so with the Commonwealth rested, defense asked to prepare time to prepare their motions to strike, and we'll start with them this morning. Are we ready for that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, I'm ready. Please proceed.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth has filed 8 indictments for felony abuse and neglect of children.
Here we go.
I'm going to sort of assume that the Commonwealth is proceeding under the fact that there were at least 8 children that were abused and neglected on January 6th. Your Honor, if that's the case, I would say the Commonwealth hasn't established that there were 8 children present in the classroom on that day when this incident occurred. The Commonwealth definitely hasn't established 8 separate incidents. So we have one incident where I guess potentially the Commonwealth believes that there was 8 children present. But the Commonwealth did not present the names of 8 individual children that were in class that day. They presented no roster or role that was confirmed by any employee that was on staff that day. And more importantly, the Commonwealth is required, I'll just read the jury instruction. In instruction of the crime of child abuse and neglect, the Commonwealth must prove beyond reasonable doubt due to the following elements of evidence. And I know that at this point where it's likely certain to the defendant was a parent, guardian, or other person responsible for the care of whoever these children are, these unnamed children, and that these unnamed children, this unnamed child or children are or were under the age of 18. There was no testimony that any individual child that was present in the classroom by name was under the age of 18. Also, the Commonwealth has to prove that the defendant's willful act or omission in care of whoever these unnamed children are was so gross, wanton, and culpable to show a reckless disregard for human life. Jury instruction that discusses the definition of willful says, a willful act is one done with a bad purpose, or without justifiable excuse, or without ground for believing it is lawful. A willful act is intentional, or knowing, or voluntarily, as distinguished from accidental. In terms of that purpose or without justifiable excuse require knowledge that a particular conduct would likely result in injury or illegality. Your Honor, in my own words,
basically saying it ain't my fault.
Established that Dr. Parker knew, and her response was, so what? I know that there's a weapon, and that there's a likelihood that children will be harmed by that weapon or firearm, and I don't care. Let whatever happen is going to happen. There was no evidence that was
That's not what happened.
Parker's response to anything that happened on that day. She was brought limited information, and she responded to the information that she had. Again, I said at the very beginning of this, if we look at the behavior of everyone that had contact with JT on that day, they did not believe that there was a firearm. They did not believe that there was a weapon. There was testimony from Ms. Warner. She was the person that had the most direct contact than anyone on that day. Her behavior did not indicate that she believed that there was a weapon. She left JT in the classroom. She left other children in the classroom. Then we go to Ms. Kovac.
Dang, he said charge the teacher that got shot. Dang.
Watch his behavior. She said it was weird, but her actions in no way indicated that she believed that there was a firearm in possession of JT. And then we consider what Mrs. West testified. She said there were some concerns. She actually observed JT on the playground with the other children. Based on her observations, she was satisfied that there was no weapon. And she only became concerned again when there was a report almost contemporaneously with the shooting that in fact was a weapon. And then we considered the testimony of Mr. Rawls. We had a lot of contact with JT leading up to this event. On the day of the event, concerns were brought to him. He investigated, put his eyes on JT, was satisfied that JT did not present a danger of harm to the students in the classroom. Your Honor, based on the information that Dr. Parker had, she made decisions. In hindsight, those decisions actually were determined not to be the correct decisions. But that wasn't her decision wasn't an act of neglect. There was no bad purpose, obviously. She didn't intend to harm to those students. Without justifiable excuse, Your Honor, based on the information she had, she took actions that she believed were appropriate based on the circumstances. And so there was no bad purpose. There's really no excuse that we're trying to say other than she did not believe that there was a weapon, so that explains her conduct on that day. So there was no information that she had that she came to the conclusion that was going to lead to harm to her students. And after coming to that conclusion, she decided that she didn't care, so what, I'm going to leave that threat of harm to those students because of JT having a firearm. Commonwealth has it.
Saying they didn't prove that she was negligent.
The Commonwealth has not established the specific names of children and their ages that were present in that classroom. We asked to consider striking the Commonwealth's case.
Thank you, sir.
What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. What do you think about the argument so far? Because again, the Commonwealth's going to make their case and the judge is going to make a decision. I think it's a reasonable argument. I mean, did they prove that in this case? I've heard some of the testimonies. Some of y'all have been watching on our other channel. If you're not subscribed to the Jury of Your Peers channel, make sure you subscribe. The link is in the description. You got to hear these testimony. You got to hear the testimony from the teacher that was shot. And she said this kid had ongoing issues and there wasn't enough done. Interesting case. Let's see what the Commonwealth has to say.
Just a moment. Your Honor, I'll try to address defense counsel's arguments in order. The first was that he did not specify children having been in the classroom to prove that children were in the classroom. What the Commonwealth is required to prove is actually what is in the indictment. And what's in the indictment is being a person responsible for the care of students under the age of 18 at Rich Neck Elementary School. So there's no need for us to prove that they were in the classroom necessarily, though certainly victims, we would argue, are in the classroom, but only at the school. That we did not present specific names is not required. The requirement of the statute
seems like you need to know the victims.
Person responsible for the care of a child under 18, willful act of omission was so gross, wanton, and culpable as to disregard human life. The statute defining what must be included in an indictment does not include a victim's name. And we can think of common examples of indictments that sometimes don't. For instance, did assault and batter another is a very common indictment that does not include any victim's name. So the jury would, the way it is indicted now, be free to find up to the number of victims that they believe existed in this case with a maximum of 8. And certainly no indictment can be returned twice for the same victim, and that can be explained to them. But at the end of the day, the jury is the fact finder, and they can decide whether, what number of victims there were, if any. And so we think it is inappropriate to try to narrow that to specific names, but rather that the jury can decide based upon the evidence that they have how many to return or to return none. I'm sorry, how many to find guilty on or to find not guilty on all. Given that the argument generally being we didn't prove there were victims, I think that's definitely false. Specific children were referred to. 5 of them by my count are R, S, D, G, G, M, G, and K, S were the specific children that we referred to during the course of the trial.
Mr. Jenkins, if you go with the initials one more time, I have S, D, G, G, M, G,
K,
That's not 8 though, is it?
And R, R.
Thank you.
So we have a total of 5 children that we identified as specificity, but I'll point to the testimony of Ms. Werner, who said there were about 20 students in her classroom, many of whom were in her field of vision at the moment that she was shot, and I would propose that it is up to the jury whether they believe more or fewer victims exist of this crime, and so we believe we should not be required to name specific victims in either the instructions or the indictments. The argument that we did not prove age begins with a reminder of 2 things, and of course the court is aware the burden of proof at this stage is alike most favorable to the Commonwealth, but I think more importantly that circumstantial evidence is evidence. We had testimony from several parents who said that they dropped their first grader off at school, that their child was in first grade, and that they were in Ms. Werner's class. Ms. Werner testified that first graders are about 6 years old, and throughout this trial we've instructed witnesses on the record to refer to people under the age of 18 using initials, and you had several parents come in and testify using only the initials of their own children. The overwhelming evidence then is that these children were under the age of 18. No, we don't have all of their specific ages, but they were first graders in Ms. Werner's class, and they were students attending an elementary school. And so I think that the proof of age has been sufficient to survive a motion to strike. There were 2 legal standards mentioned by defense counsel in his argument to the court. And one was that he indicated that we had failed to prove that the defendant knew of the danger. But if you consult the model jury instructions, that is not the standard. The model jury instruction for criminal negligence tells us that to constitute criminal negligence, the Commonwealth must show that the defendant either knew or should have known that the probable result of his or her acts or omissions would be serious injury or death to a child. Given that, the correct standard for the court to apply is not that Dr. Parker knew there was a danger necessarily, but that she should have known of the danger. Having said that, she did know. There were multiple warnings she received from multiple people that there was an armed student. And as I argued during the trial on several objections, whether they thought it was a toy, whether they thought it was a knife, whether they thought just the mere fact that a possible weapon is on campus should have triggered the response defined in the crisis management plan, yet it did not. So it should have known and not known. The second
gotta be careful.
Legal standard defense counsel left out is from the willful act definition jury instruction. And so the model on that says a willful act is done with bad purpose. That's what defense counsel pointed out, but it's with bad purpose or without justifiable excuse. And I would argue that that is the part that we rely on here. I do not argue that Dr. Parker had a bad purpose. I will concede that fact. But the law says it's either of those, a bad purpose or without justifiable excuse. And I certainly believe the evidence has shown that she willfully omitted acts that she should have done, and that she had no justifiable excuse for that willful omission. Given that, Judge, I ask you to deny the motions to strike.
Thank you, sir. This is the defense motion, so they can have the last word. Anything additional?
I just want the court to keep in the forefront, again, the actions of everybody.
That's fine. And in case y'all can't hear it, this guy's mumbling like crazy. In case you can't hear him, he say not following school policy doesn't necessarily mean you committed a crime. Again, fair argument.
Allegation. There were acts that should have been done, definitely in hindsight. But based upon the information that Dr. Parker had, she did not willfully take any action, or if there was no willful omission on her part to put these children in harm. Again, mistakes occurred, but there was definitely no criminal intent, and I would submit that her actions in not criminal. It was just that at most it was a lapse of judgment. Somebody makes a mistake, that should not result in felony allegations or definitely felony convictions. So omitting a step in a school policy should not be considered to be a crime. She acted upon the information that she had. She took the steps that she thought were necessary. She did not believe that there was a gun. Nobody that was there acted as if they believed that there was a gun. And I'd ask that you find the Commonwealth, even at this stage, and like most members of the Commonwealth, has not established a willful act or omission. And definitely the Commonwealth will succeed that there has been no specific proof of the age of any child that was incarcerated.
Anything further before the court makes a rule on the motion to strike?
No, Your Honor.
We'll be honest, we could have done that yesterday. I expected more substantial motion with case law and additional principles of law that the court would probably need to recess and consider, but we are where we are. Having considered this case for 4 days and listened to the motions of counsel, and the division of labor in a criminal jury trial. So in that division of labor, in those legal proceedings, questions of facts go to the jury, questions of law go to the judge. A question of fact asks what happened, and it requires evaluating evidence, such as the witness testimony and or physical proof. Questions of law ask how does the law apply to those facts, and requires interpretation of statutes, precedents, and constitutional rules. And that's kind of legalese, but breaking it down. The judge decides the question of law.
Yeah, they fixed the mic, thank goodness.
Procedure, and runs the courtroom. In this case, a criminal jury, the jury would decide the facts, which is what happened. To give an analogy, because this case doesn't put itself well to analogy. Somebody is given a ticket for speeding, 70 and a 65, but they're stopped in the parking lot. The jury decides the question of fact. Was that driver actually going 70? The judge will decide, does the speeding law apply in the parking lot? So that's the way to wrap your mind around the difference between question of law and fact, which can get quite convoluted.
Good point, Judge.
With the question of facts being resolved by the trier of fact, which in this case is the jury, and their job would be to weigh the strength of the evidence and the credibility of the witness. And judges resolve the questions of law. And what would be put to the jury in this case was whether or not Ebony Parker is guilty. And that would be the question of fact. I do say all this because the distinction between law and fact can become convoluted, and they can be mixed. It can be a mixed question of law and fact. The Supreme Court itself has acknowledged that it can be
tell us what's going to happen, Judge.
Imperfect science of where is that dividing line. But identifying that line is important, critically important, whether or not it's a question of law or fact. Question of fact goes to the jury, they make the decisions. Question of law, it stays with the judge. And I guess for purposes of the parties' understanding, that influences the courtroom decision maker, the appellate review, how evidentiary rules are administered, and the application of precedent, which I would say there is no precedent for what's before the court of an administrator being criminally charged and tried for what has been presented and what happened that day, January 6, 2023, at Richneck Elementary School in Newport News. This court is finding that it is presented with a question of law. which requires resolution by the decision maker. The decision maker on questions of law are the judge, and whose decision is that, and my decision is that this is a matter for the court, and the court is of the legal opinion that this is not a crime, not under the common law of Virginia, nor under the code of Virginia. And the court is going to explain its rationale and ruling.
She said she didn't commit a crime.
With that being said, if it's not a crime under the common law nor under the code of Virginia, should the legislature wish to make this a crime, then they will create specific statutory language to do so. When reviewing the statutory language, the court is bound by the plain meaning of that language and must give effect to the legislature's intention as expressed by the language used.
She's
and
crying.
unless
That's
a
amazing.
literal interpretation of the language will result in manifest absurdity. So now look at the statute. Virginia Code 18.2, 371.
I can't imagine how relieved she is.
What the indictment charges here is under paragraph B of that statute. It reads, any parent, guardian, or other person responsible for the care of a child under the age of 18 whose willful act or omission in the care of such child was so gross, wanton, and culpable as to show reckless disregard for human life is guilty of a Class 6 felony. The indictments in this case don't address specific individuals, but they list students. The court finds that what has been presented to it is a mashup of legal theory. And it is not clear, based upon the plain meaning of the statute, that these facts are crimes. In the court's analysis, the court is asking, is the crime that Ebony Parker didn't follow Newport News policy and procedure, of which was put into evidence, which would have required two people to search the person of JT, either two administrators or one administrator and one security officer, of which the security officer was on site at a different school performing their duties, and the principal, the other administrator present that's known in this proceeding, was in scheduled meetings during testing. It is the crime that Dr. Parker didn't direct a search of the child's person after being informed that the book bag was clear. Are the 8 counts of the indictment based upon the number of children in the room when the firearm went off? Are the 8 counts of the indictment based upon unfired bullets remaining in the firearm, which would be contrary to established case law as they have to be discharged? Is the delayed reunification and reckless disregard for human life? Is it the emotional trauma of the exposed child who was in the classroom? I believe
This is
the initials
crazy.
were
I've never
KS.
seen this before.
Is that the reckless disregard for human life? Is it the fearfulness, bedwetting, and hypervigilance of all the children in the school that day that comprises the reckless disregard for human life? Is it because JT wasn't expelled prior to January 6, 2023 due to his previous behaviors?
And that's because his mom let him get a gun.
Which presumably would be in the province of the prior principals, Dr. Goodman and then Ms. Foster. Or is the crime the lack of heightened response from Ebony Parker due to her awareness of prior issues with JT? The court is unclear. And as previously stated, those legal theories do not fit the plain meaning of the statute. If they are to amount to a crime, then the legislature will need to codify it. Therefore, I do grant defense motion to strike in whole on all counts, all 8 counts of felony child abuse and endangerment under indictment
That's
CR.
crazy.
Indictment number 24999-541-01308. So those matters are dismissed. I want to add, my ruling today is based upon legal principles only. It is inappropriate for me to give my personal thoughts or express
Come on, Judge, we want to hear it.
But it's understanding what happened that day was awful. That is agreed upon by all. The criminal matter before me does not call for me to discuss the Newport News school system or make political observations, and I will not comment on optics or engage in speculation. For the media, who has contacted this court constantly over the past 2 weeks, there will be no further comment from this court, except to commend the attorneys on both sides, Mr. Jenkins, Mr. Rogers, and Mr. Teague, for zealously advocating their respective positions and treating this forum with the utmost decorum.
Wow.
It is 9:46, and I did not have the jurors reporting until 10. So I'll ask the parties how they wish for me to discharge the jurors, if they want me to just tell them when they report to the room or have them brought out and do it on the record. But in discharging them, I will remind them that no one from this court will contact them and direct them about this case. And I will ask the attorneys to please inform all of the witnesses that were to remain constructively sequestered that they are released. So from the attorneys, how would you like me to inform the jurors who are still coming in the building that they're discharged from the duties for this case?
Your Honor, I feel like you should discharge them on the record. Okay. I would have no objection at all if the defendant or other parties.
Yeah, I would bring him in and tell him.
Do that with counsel.
Just counsel.
That would be fine.
Okay. Defense position.
Your Honor, I'm actually okay with the Commonwealth's position.
Okay. So I will step off the bench. So we'll be in recess, and then we'll discharge the jurors on the record once they all report. And parties, please be quiet. And however you feel about the court's ruling, you can express that outside of the courtroom. This is still a professional legal forum. All right.
There it is. Hey, congratulations to Ebony Parker. This is something you do not see often. All of her criminal charges were dismissed in this case. Do you think the judge made the right decision? I mean, she's the judge. She knows the law. She said the law doesn't apply here. And as her defense attorney stated, just because it's school policy doesn't mean she broke the law. Interesting facts here. Let me know what you guys think in the comments in the chat. Wow. I got to give her another round of applause. That was... Can y'all imagine the relief that she feels? My goodness. Let me see what y'all are saying. Look at the officers. Yeah, I know. I saw it. We got a couple super chats in here. Thank y'all for the love and the super chats. Big shout out to Instrand 01 says, ClassE, can you cover the guy suing ClassE, suing Cassie? Yes, I absolutely can. We've covered him in other videos, and how the court keeps issuing orders against him. And all his cases? Previously, you said the cases were legit. Did I say the cases were legit? I find that hard to believe. And a lot of these cases, especially criminal cases or civil cases, I say innocent until proven guilty. So did I say that? I find it hard to believe, but either way, thank you for the support. I appreciate you for the love, Instra01, and I will look into that and find out. Because as the judge is throwing him out, again, that doesn't surprise me because he filed those lawsuits. Man, I can't even think of the phrase now. He was representing himself. So, why can I not think of the term? This is why I'm not an attorney, guys. So he represented himself. There wasn't an attorney that wanted to take these cases. So it doesn't surprise me if these rulings are going against him that that happened. Because, I mean, and especially with something like that, a case against Cassie, a high profile case, you would think an attorney would take that. But who knows? What do I know? That is amazing, man. Shout out to Ebony Parker for getting those, for getting those charges dismissed. That's kind of crazy. Thank you to everyone who's in here. If y'all haven't yet, please make sure you like the video. It looks like we've got over 700 of y'all that have liked the video. Wow. Thank you guys. I appreciate the support. We got to get into this Board of Commissioners meeting that just took place yesterday, and I'm going to highlight some of the things that were said during that meeting for y'all. So make sure you stay locked in. I'm going to get our headline updated, and then we'll go ahead and get into it, because y'all know these Board of Commissioners meetings always get spicy. So we'll find Uncle Rob real quick, and I'll read a couple more of your comments as well. Where's Rob Pitts at? I know he's in here somewhere. Yeah, but that, again, if that's what happened in those cases, that wouldn't surprise me. There's a reason he had to file those himself. Pro se. I was going to say pro se. It just didn't feel right. Thank you, Peter. I was like, pros. So I held back. I wasn't brave. It would be hard to be a teacher these days. It's an understatement. A lot of innocent people go to jail because cases get dismissed and then they just file again until they convict them. Hopefully not in this case. I can't imagine that they will. I mean, the teacher who was shot, Abby Werner, she got a $10 million judgment in her favor. There's no reason to go through all this. The mother already pled guilty. The child has to live with the fact that they shot their teacher. I mean, you're going against the assistant principal. I don't know. And if you guys didn't follow that case, you can go and watch every single day of that short trial. It was just 3 days. Today was the 3rd day over on the Jury of Your Peers channel. The link is in the pinned comment in the chat, and you can also find it in the description, or you can just go to YouTube and type in Jury of Your Peers. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers. Well, 1,000 really, but 500 would be great. We're 125 subscribers away. So if y'all could please go and subscribe to the Jury of Your Peers channel, I would greatly appreciate it. All right, let's go ahead and get in this next topic. Oh, Fulton County, here we go. We got to talk about the latest Board of Commissioners meeting. Let's get into it. So we've had conversations when it comes to Fulton County, what's happening with the jail, what's happening with the Board of Commissioners, and specifically during this election, who is going to take the lead when it comes to the Board of Commissioners. Rob Pitts, Marvin Arrington, and Mo Ivory are going into a runoff, and this situation is going to be absolutely insane. You know, our guy here is Eric Tatum, so y'all make sure you go to erictatumforfultoncounty.com to check him out. But we got to get into the recent commissioners meeting because a lot went down and a lot of conversations were had about PAD. We'll talk about what PAD is when it comes to pre-arrest detention. We'll get into that conversation here. We're going to hear about some of the situations that could have been done better, and we'll actually hear specific instances and stories from people who were in the Fulton County Jail. Y'all check this out.
All right, speakers, when you have 15 seconds, as you know, I will say 15 seconds, and that's your clue to begin to terminate or conclude your remarks.
Hey everybody, Michael Collins. I hope everybody got a good night's sleep after all the partying and celebrating and election stuff last night. I wanted to talk about two things that we are here. A lot of us are here to talk about today. One is calling on the commission to get involved and fix issues around the diversion centre as it relates to PAD.
Also, before I finish letting this gentleman speak, if you missed our interview with Amanda Timpson, please go make sure you check that out, because she actually talked about diversion and worked in Fulton County and in the DA's office when it comes to diversion. This conversation, it couldn't happen at a better time because it's so important into understanding how the management of the jail, how the management of the DA's office, and how the DA's office has a part in filling the Fulton County Jail as well. So make sure you guys go watch that too.
There has been, foolish dispute between the city of Atlanta and contract issues around PAD. It's causing the diversion centre, which you guys heavily supported, to be put in jeopardy at a time when the World Cup is approaching and we need the diversion centre to be as robust as ever. And PAD is an agency that has been at the forefront of diversion in this city, but for some reason is being pushed out, played with, whatever way you want to put it, when it comes to contract issues with the diversion centre. PAD is a key part of the diversion centre and always has been. Yep. And it's up to the commission now to step in and show their support with PAD. The second thing I wanted to say is there's a resolution before you all today to encourage the sheriff to use his power to decline certain misdemeanor offences when they're brought to the jail. I know Commissioner Thorne and Commissioner Pitts have worked closely on this together. It's something that Playfair ATL spoke about in connection with the World Cup and the need to take all measures possible to reduce the jail population. It would mean that when somebody on a minor offence is brought to the jail, they can simply be given a ticket or taken to another facility. Seconds. And we're not adding to overcrowding. So in the name of using all options available to reduce the jail population, we call on you to support this and support PAD. Thank you.
And as we're talking about this, there has actually been a lot of outrage for the recent conversations that were had during the Board of Commissioners meeting, because they're essentially saying what you heard this gentleman said, hey, during the World Cup, just try not to lock up too many people for silly issues. And that's why they're all here, because they're saying instead of maybe putting them in Fulton County Jail, can we just divert them to another holding facility and get them some care? So somebody maybe gets arrested for indecent exposure. You have homeless people who are arrested for public intoxication or something like that. then you don't actually have to overcrowd the jail. So there's been a lot of pushback about this because people are like, why are you going to promote and tell people coming to Fulton County that, hey, you know, if you commit some type of petty crime, we're not going to arrest you. It's wild. And we'll get into that in a second.
Good morning. My name is Janisha Dore, and I am a community advocate and a former participant with PAD. And right now, our city is having major conversations about public safety, homelessness, behavioral health, jail conditions, and neighborhood stabilization. And the truth is, these are not separate issues. We see it in our MARTA stations. We see it in our parks, outside our libraries, in our emergency rooms, in our neighborhoods. We see people in crisis, and too often, the only systems available to respond are already overwhelmed. That is why PAD matters. Because PAD sits directly in the middle of what Atlanta says is trying to solve. This meeting may be framed around structure, oversight, contracts, metrics, and operational control. And yes, accountability matters. Transparency matters. Efficiency matters. But while those conversations are happening on paper, real people are living the impact of every delay, every service gap, and every failure to respond before crisis gets worse. Atlanta cannot arrest its way out of homelessness. We cannot displace our way out of poverty. We cannot emergency response our way out of untreated mental health needs. If we are serious about public safety, we need to be serious about prevention. PAD does not replace public safety, it strengthens it. It helps create another pathway before someone ends up in handcuffs, in a jail cell, in emergency rooms, or in a system completely lost to a system that has never been built to heal them. So if the concern is oversight, then strengthen oversight. If the concern is metrics, then improve metrics. If the concern is coordination, then build better coordination. But do not tighten the process so hard that we choke off the very service helping people avoid deeper system involvement in the first place. Supporting PAD is not about politics. It is about whether Atlanta is willing to invest in intervention before collapse. Support PAD, stabilize the system, and stop making prevention beg. Thank you.
Well said. Yeah, I see y'all. They let them clap today. They're letting them clap today.
Good morning, everyone. My name is James Jones, and I wanted to briefly share my experience with PAD and what this process has meant for me personally. Before working with PAD, a large portion of my life was focused on survival and instability. When you are constantly worried about where you are going to sleep, safety, transportation, or basic needs, it becomes very difficult to regulate yourself mentally, emotionally, and physically. One thing I've learned through this experience is that regulation starts with stabilization. PAD helped provide structure, guidance, and consistency during a time when my life lacked those things. That support gave me the ability to begin rebuilding not only my stability, but also my confidence, discipline, and long-term vision for my future. I especially want to acknowledge my care navigator, Denise. One thing that stood out to me throughout this process is that she genuinely listens, assesses my concerns and situations, and then works towards navigating me towards beneficial solutions. That matters because when someone is trying to rebuild their life, being heard and having practical guidance can make a major difference. I'm a certified trauma-informed yoga instructor, and over the last year, I continue developing a movement and wellness practice rooted in yoga, cycling, mobility, breath work, and intentional movement throughout Atlanta. The work I've done with regulation through yoga became much more effective, and once I had a support system, helping me stabilize the environment in my daily life. Because of that support I've received from PAD,
15 seconds.
able to build my Facebook page which teaches regulation through the internet and hopefully one day in person. Johnson. And that's what I'm currently working on. Thank y'all for your time. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Joyce Farmer, and I stand here before you because the people of this county deserve answers in regards to the condition of our jail.
We're going to get into that in the next video. So I'm going to pause it here, but I want to read this article to you guys about what's happening with PAD and what they're talking about, because this is crazy. With Atlanta about a month away from hosting World Cup events expected to draw visitors from around the globe, Fulton County commissioners are urging the sheriff to avoid jailing people for certain low-level misdemeanor offenses as the Fulton County Jail faces overcrowding and federal scrutiny over safety concerns. Do you guys think this is the right move? Come on down to Fulton County. You want to celebrate the World Cup? You can pee on the sidewalk. You can drink. Doesn't matter. Go ahead. Have fun. Throw some rocks. All right. You know, if you want to take something, as long as you do it, you don't do it 3 times. All right. You can shoplift. We're not going to lock you up. Just we won't arrest you. All right. Commissioners unanimously approved the resolution Wednesday introduced by Chairman Rob Pitts. The measure asks Sheriff Pat Labat to use discretion and avoid locking people up for offenses such as public drunkenness, public urination, and possession of small amounts of marijuana. I cannot believe we're still on the weed thing, by the way. Pitts and activists supporting the resolution said they are concerned that large-scale international events can bring waves of arrests. Pointing to Atlanta's experience hosting the 1996 Summer Olympics, they urged that booking people in the Fulton County Jail for minor offenses would worsen overcrowding at a facility already under federal review. You don't say. We have FIFA, the World Cup coming. A very large-scale event, Devin Barrington Ward said, adding that past major events in Atlanta were accompanied by mass arrests. Advocates also want law enforcement to make greater use of Fulton County's diversion center, which we just heard and talked about it, which they say could keep more people out of jail while still addressing public safety concerns. I'd love to hear Amanda's thoughts on this. At present, the diversion center can accommodate about 30 to 40 diversions a day. And Barrington Ward said, an activist who was often criticized who has criticized the conditions at the jail, we aren't sometimes even getting to the half of that. Pitt said the resolution is not a mandate and does not change the law, but he said the sheriff had discretion over enforcement and detention decisions. He also raised concerns about arresting international visitors for minor violations, saying it's unrealistic to expect some people to return for a court appearance if they are released and leave the country. If you put them in jail, that's going to exacerbate the problem in our jail, Pitt said. Guys, this is real. He really said this. Ward said a jail cell is not an appropriate response for some quality of life offenses, particularly a jail remains under federal review. We just don't think a jail cell is really the appropriate remedy for some of these challenges in our city and the county, Ward said. Sheriff Labat has not publicly responded to the resolution. I have so much I could say on this, specifically the fact that there are people who are sitting in jail right now, who are here in Fulton County, who live here in Fulton County, that have not had their day in court and who have not been found guilty. There are people who are sitting in this jail that we should be concerned about. We're concerned about people coming in from out of town and cutting up and then being thrown in jail because they broke the law. Why not talking about why are these people facing these charges in the first place that are there? Have a conversation with the DA's office. Hold them accountable. We talked about this yesterday. Have a conversation with the sheriff's department. Say, hey, what can we do? This is fine. It's a good step, but we're completely disregarding and ignoring the issue that's already there and why we're in this situation in the first place. It's absolutely infuriating. Guys, I'm going to tell you, if you're coming down here for the World Cup, have fun. Just be careful. Let me know what you guys think in the comments in the chat. Oh my gosh. What do y'all think about this? What did Amy say? Ice can hold it. That's not what Amy said. Amy said, facts, a system built never to heal them. Goodness gracious, PAD should be supported, but it doesn't scale to the problem we have. We need more public defenders. Nothing else will do. We need the DA's office to do a better job as well. Ice can hold them is absolutely hilarious. There's more from this meeting, guys. We have, oh my gosh, there's so much more we could get into. There's so much more from this meeting. As y'all know, these Board of Commissioners meetings actually are absolutely insane. So let's go ahead and actually get into talking about what's going on in the jail, because we're going to hear some testimony that is really hard to listen to be honest. So let's go ahead and get into it. We've got more video from the Board of Commissioners meeting, and we're actually going to get into the issues in the jail. Later on in another video, we're actually going to hear from the Board of Commissioners their frustration with what's going on in the jail and if they're going to be able to make any changes. But first, let's hear about a situation that took place in the Fulton County Jail recently and what the Board of Commissioners, the Sheriff's Office here in Fulton County, is doing about it. Check it out.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Joyce Farmer, and I stand here before you because the people of this county deserve answers in regards to the condition of our jail. For too long, too many families have watched their loved ones suffer behind those walls from death, lawsuits, allegation of neglect. The jail shouldn't be a place that is secured, constitutional, and humane. Inmates shouldn't have to worry about being injured or not receiving medical attention. Leadership means taking the responsibility when the system fails. Leadership means facing the public and not hiding. Leadership means coming up with solutions and not excuses. We need a stronger mental health and medical system. We need oversight. We need to build culture from the top down on accountability. This is not just this is not just headlines. These are people's lives. These are mothers, daughters, sons, and fathers. So this is not political. It's accountability, transparency, and people's lives. The people have spoken, the family has spoken, and the commissioner has spoken. The question is, who will have the courage to change this? Thank you.
Well said by her.
The World Cup is about to have a lot of people in handcuffs because corruption, as we continue to tell y'all, done got too comfortable. But it doesn't really care about who it keeps around as long as it can have control and power. But as we watched last night, so many different things take place. We watched no one speak about what just took place over at Waccamaw Park with the election ballots and the event that was taking place right 110 feet away that's supposed to be in 150. Now, we all know that Mayor Gums and Helen Willis are real good friends. So we're asking for an investigation because there's some type of ties off in there. This is the reason why no one believes in the integrity of the election.
That's a fact.
Because there is too much corruption being pushed up under the rug, being ignored. So while everybody is out here rallying about the redistricting, y'all better worry about the redistricting of y'all's pockets that they about to do, the redistricting of your bank accounts that you're about to have to be extra because they're taking your property. See, this redistricting of these seats that they're trying to place up amongst us. Mm-hmm. There's no way that Dana isn't up with Penny. No way. That right there is questionable.
LA Pink does not care.
Like, you have not done one thing, but neither here nor there. Then Marvin Arrington, we're praying that you don't get behind Mo Mess because we know how the corruption goes. It's a domino effect. When one loses, they got to keep the other losing.
15 seconds.
But however, community, y'all better wake up because the devil's on the loose.
Wake up. Well said, LA Pink. Look at Dana. Dana caught an L.
Hello, my name is Tanisha White, and I'm here to inform you on how your jails are being operated.
This is a sad
April
story.
25, from April to October 2025, I was arrested, and I was locked up in Wright Street, but...
Okay, April. So May, June, July, August, September, October. 6 months, guys, all right? Think about this for a second.
Pre-trial. And from the day that I walked in and I received my blankets and my sheets, to the day I walked out is the same blanket and sheet that I had when I came in there. They posted up on the doors that they were going to weekly
6 months,
wash the
guys.
sheets and the blankets, but never did. We were barely able to get clean uniforms every week as we were supposed to. On top of that, you get one sports bar, one underwear. Well, you know, women, we get the time of the month. So we struggle to have to keep our hygiene up with one sports bra and one underwear.
Y'all hear this, ladies?
And also, when I walked in, I noticed that for the women, we don't have nothing that shows us anything of bonding companies, lawyers, no type of information like that. When I asked an officer about it, the answer to me was that I had to ask another inmate for that information, and it wasn't put up or given or none of that. You have people in there that have mental disabilities that don't even need to be in there, but they're in there. The officers are rude, disrespectful, talk to you any kind of way. And I knew they took oaths. So for them to act like that is crazy. Ledbetter, she should not be where she is right now. The simple fact that they neglected her and left her there. When you say you're on suicidal watch, you're not supposed to be in.
Thank you, ma'am.
He cut the microphone.
Next speakers, please come forward.
Can y'all imagine? Can you imagine having to be in these conditions? Can you imagine what that looked like? It's disgusting. And we don't even know what the charges were. She got released in October. Why was she there? We don't even know if she got her time in court. Sad, man. You gotta keep talking about this.
Sean Stillo, Hillary Phillips, Helen Williams, Devin Franklin, Denise White, Eric Montero.
Man.
Good morning. My name is Sean Stillo. I'm a medical student, a Master of Public Health candidate, and a fellow with Stop Criminalization of Our Patients, better known as SCOOP.
Nice.
At SCOOP, we provide education and research on the ways in which the criminal legal system impacts health. I'm here today to speak in support of evidence-based alternatives to policing and incarceration, specifically in support of PAD. Based on 911 analysis, we know that the vast majority of community responses do not require police. When individuals, especially those already vulnerable, are forced into the criminal legal system, most experience further traumatization and marginalization. And a system rooted in coercion rarely fosters lasting recovery and stability.
That's a fact.
I know this not only academically and professionally, but personally as a nephew. My uncle struggled with a substance use disorder for much of his life. He cycled through systems that only perpetuated his trauma rather than addressing it. My uncle overdosed and died shortly after being released from prison. My mother and her siblings never got the chance to see what might have happened if their baby brother had been given the opportunity to take a different path. That fear of receiving the call, the one that no family should ever have to get, eventually became her reality. Right now, there are families all across Fulton County terrified of receiving that same phone call. Programs like PAD matter because they create opportunities for intervention before tragedies like this occur. They recognize that people experiencing mental illness, substance use disorders, homelessness, and poverty are still members of our community. When we create opportunities for all to heal, everyone in Fulton County benefits. I'm asking the board to resolve PAD's contract with the Center for Diversion and Services. Yep. This is not just a policy decision. This is a decision to support the 126 people currently connected to care navigation services and all the future ones that PAD will no doubt help. As a future physician, I believe we should always choose care and compassion over punishment. It is not only the ethical choice, it is the most effective one. Thank you.
Well said. Well said by him. Again, guys, we got to keep talking about this. We have to keep reminding you that this is something that is affecting your communities. Even if you're not in Fulton County, understand and look into what's going on in your city, in your state, and your county, because you don't want it to get to this point before you start having conversations and getting out and voting and understanding who's in those positions, because then it's going to be too late. Let me know what y'all think in the comments in the chat. Thank you to everybody who's in here. We got over 7,000 of y'all up in this thing. This next one, oh boy, it's going to be interesting. So y'all buckle up. because we are now going to hear from the Board of Commissioners about the Fulton County Jail. And it seems like they've had enough. I don't know if this is a legitimate concern or if they're just saying this because the election's going on in there and Rob Pitts and Marvin Arrington and Mo Ivory are facing a runoff. I don't know, but we're going to get into it here. I got to fast forward to the 4-hour mark for those of y'all who are watching, and we'll get into it because this is going to be crazy. Make sure if you haven't yet liked the video. Oh my goodness, 900 of y'all have liked the video. Thank you so much. Thank y'all. Yeah, Amy said that's awful with the jail situation. Yeah, let me read a couple of y'all's comments. Someone has to determine that first, so the police have to show up first. Yeah, I mean, figure out what the offense was and then decide where you're going to put them. It's not that complicated. Or at least pick them up. I mean, and call Pat Labat, say, hey, where are we taking them? Right? It should be pretty straightforward because in a lot of cases we have to do that anyway. Either way, we got to talk about this. This one is going to be infuriating for me, but I'm going to try and hold back, guys. We have to talk about what's going on with the Fulton County Jail and specifically what the Board of Commissioners said during their last meeting about the Fulton County Jail. It seems that the Board of Commissioners is fed up with what's happening in Fulton County Jail, although we haven't really seen any movement from the Sheriff's Department. We haven't seen any conversation with the DA's office, and now they're going to speak on what's actually happening and what happened with Rob Pitt's 5-point plan to help improve the jail. Here we go.
0297, Regional 3 Emergency Medical Services Council. Chairman Pitts has nominated Stephen Moyes for a full board reappointment to a term ending June 30th, 2028.
All right, motion to approve by Vice Chair Abdul Rahman, seconded by Commissioner Thorne.
And the vote is open. And the motion passes. 6 yeas, 0 nays. On page 9.
Here we go.
Commissioners' presentation and discussion items. 260299, discussion, utilization of funds committed for improving jail detention staffing and the detention staffing hiring process, sponsored by Commissioner Ellis.
All right, Commissioner Ellis.
Shout out to Bob.
Yeah, could we also just, I think, just tie this in with item coming off the consent agenda, the justice system update, since they're related.
Okay, back on page 4. Bottom of page 4, 260279, May 2026 Justice System Update.
Yeah, thank you. I'm certainly not looking for you to go through this presentation. I just really had, I wanted for this particular component, the utilization of some sort of graphical representation of that to be sort of in the continual justice system updates. And so, Mr. Herman, I know you provided some detail at the last meeting, and I just asked to confirm this again. And I just want to reiterate again the importance of this. And I said this before, what gets measured gets focused. And the stuff, the lack of this happening is costing us material amounts of money and also creating material amounts of risk. I think at the last meeting, one of the things that I'm not sure came out in the floor session or not, but one of the things that was shared of us related to facilities themselves was that we have this fixing of doors that goes on, which doesn't have anything to do with the age of the facility. These are doors that get repaired, and Mr. County Manager, I think this information was shared back for us from Mr. Davis, I believe, who's not here, but that information was shared. It was that 35 of the 80 doors that they had repaired within 3 weeks were damaged again. And that sort of speaks to things not being supervised and monitored. And if you run that out, we're on pace to spend $3 million. $3 million. Again, $3 million on door repairs due to vandalism. And we know kind of like all of the stuff that's come before this that we've had to turn down or find unique ways of things to do, whether it's youth job programs or whether they're senior related things. But, you know, things that
Mental
we would
health.
like to do and put priority in, but we're not able to do them because we're having to incur sunk costs like this that could be avoided if we have proper supervision, which ties to this initiative of getting this 200 net new people in there. And so I do want to
People
kind of
wanna
continue
work
to
there.
keep this front and center. At the last meeting, again, sort of the target on this with this additional, you know, just under $20 million footprint that was set aside for this was to get to a net new 200. And at the last meeting, we had a net new of 27. And where are we at today in terms of the net new hires?
30.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Kenneth Herman, Chief HR Officer. As of today, the number has dropped slightly. We're projecting net new of 25. We had some additional separations.
Okay. So we're closing in on 5 months, and we're at 25.
5 months they've had $20 million set aside to figure this out, and we are still at a point to where we've only hired 25 people. They're trying to get 200, and people are, I ain't going in there. Pat Labat, Fulton County, Rice Street, no, thank you. What is happening? There's sign-on bonuses, there's incentives. Nobody wants to go there. Why?
On a target of 200. So just want us to all kind of keep that in focus and keep this in these reports so that we can kind of continue to
It's infuriating.
Understand what's going on with that and the impact that has by not meeting it on our overall system and implications for the entire county. Thanks.
Jeez.
All right. I'm sorry, Commissioner Thorne.
Do we know why, like how long it takes if a candidate is interviewed by the sheriff, the whole
They
the
don't
length
want
of the
to
hiring
work
process?
there,
Like when
Commissioner
are some of
Thorne.
these candidates presented, and then how long is it taking for them to go through the process?
Commissioner, I don't have that information, but I can go back and look at the 11 folks that have been hired, sorry, of the 44 individuals that have been hired. I can see when they started the process to when they actually became on board and provide you that information on average, that it's 60 days or 90 days. I know in a conversation with the sheriff's office, I think they were trying to be no more than 30 days outside of the county's normal 60-day hiring process. But we acknowledge that their process is protracted because they do have to do a number of different validation steps than that we have to do for a normal hiring of a clerk, for example.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else? Madam Clerk?
260301, discussion, update, implementation of the 5-point plan, sponsored by Chairman Pitts.
Yeah, let's talk about the 5-point plan, Rob.
Yes, sir.
Hey, good afternoon. Benjamin McCarty from the Strategy Office. I think we have a PowerPoint, if we can wait for that to be pulled up. All right, thank you. As I said, my name is Benjamin McCarty. I'm here from the Strategy Office. I recently started with the county. Excited.
Can you speak up a little bit, please?
Excited to be here and be doing this work. And so we wanted to, we're of course going to provide an update on the 5 points, but wanted to start with this slide to give us a little bit of additional language to show that we are continuing to think through what a broader and more structured jail reduction plan could look like, because of course we're going to need to continue doing jail reduction work probably in the future. So one of the things that I wanted to note here, and you'll probably be seeing this in future updates, is this focus areas on the bottom left of the slide. So we have the pre-arrest, pre-booking, and post-booking. So pre-arrest would be things like the diversion center and the work that Pat is doing. And then we have pre-booking, which would be one of the 5 points, which is the diversion hub. And then we also have strategies that would be focused on post-booking. And I bring this up just to show that we can do things to reduce the jail population that is currently in jail, but also the inflow as well. So that just helps us think about additional measures that we can do to help reduce the number of people that are coming into the jail. I also wanted to point out here, although it is not one of the 5 points, we have the data working group. This group is almost all of the justice partners who have met, I believe, 3 times now, and we're meeting every Thursday. And we are going through the justice data to identify an inventory of data points, key data points that we can use to effectively measure our progress toward jail reduction initiatives.
Okay,
So I've
let's
heard
hear
over
about the
years that
progress.
there's a need to have the partners align on the justice data so that there's standardized definitions, so that we can use them effectively when we're communicating with one another, so that we're pulling the same numbers. And so in the future, you can expect that we will hopefully be able to show you a prototype of what a new dashboard could look like, which would have some of those aligned data points focused on our jail reduction initiatives. And we can go to the next slide. All right, so moving to our 5 points, we've got one slide here for each of the 5 points. So the first one being reducing our pretrial population through increased utilization of our ankle monitors. We know that we have capacity to place people, additional folks on ankle monitors. And so we've had some conversations with the district attorney and public defender's offices, and we've reached out to provide support.
They've had
'cause they'll be the
conversations.
ones
How
who would
nice.
primarily be leading that effort. After those conversations, we believe that a reasonable or realistic number of placements that we could achieve on a monthly basis would be a net of 20 to 25. And so if we are able to do that through the end of the year, we think that we could reach a point where we have a net increase of up to 150 additional monitors. And so we'll continue to support that work. As I say, we've reached out to provide support to those offices, and so we'll continue to do that. So next slide, please.
Wait a minute before you leave this.
Uh-oh. Rob.
So
Rob's
when
about
we
to get
originally
kissed.
talked about this, there were some 500 or 600 that were eligible to be put on ankle monitors immediately. The district attorney sent a memo or email, which I saw a copy of. But what's happened with that?
Yeah, I believe they did have some initial meetings where the district attorney and the public defender did meet, and I believe that district attorney identified about 200 people, and that those people were shared with the public defender, and they met and they did review them. I believe that they were able to coordinate release through ankle monitors of about 15 people, and I know.
You guys hear this? 500 allegedly eligible, according to the district attorney's office. 15 were released. Rob Pitts said 500 were allegedly eligible to be released immediately. Not next week, not in August, not 2027, immediately. And they've released 15 people. Don't go to jail here.
Know that they're continuing to have conversations to establish a mechanism by which they can coordinate review of those people. I will say that as we may pull 200 people, but as we go through that list, it may not always be that simple, because there's going to be other reasons why, if someone's eligible or appropriate for an ankle monitor release, it may not be realistic to do so because they have other reasons to be held in jail. And so that may be that they're not able to post their bond. So a judge would have to reconsider or lower that bond, or they may have to be seek some other assistance to be able to pay that bond. So,
Okay, I mean no disrespect here, but this is a simple matter that will help us to immediately decrease the jail population. And I was encouraged when I saw the initial memo that was sent by the district attorney. But
We're talking about Fonnie Willis
We started
here.
this, what, 2 months ago, 3 months ago?
It's not a priority,
Yeah, I believe so.
Rob.
And this will be in July or not. I'm going to do like Commissioner Ellis here. I'm going to have this on our agenda at every meeting, and I like actual numbers. I appreciate the words on your PowerPoint here, but I mean, we have a problem that we're just all trying to reduce the jail population, and we can do this quickly. Now, I don't want to talk about why I'm hearing there is a problem.
It's not a
Or
priority.
Not a problem, but reluctance to do so. But this will be back on the agenda. If you want to go through, you want to be heard. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, could I also say, we would benefit from some encouragement from this group to the two principals that are responsible for this, the DA and the public defender, being
Thank
here
you.
to explain what's the disconnect between the memo and the practice.
Yes. Are we just saying that, okay, well, this person might be in jail for felony murder, and they might be in jail for possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, but they're eligible for an ankle monitor, but they're really not going to get out on an ankle monitor because half of those 500 people, their bond is $100,000. Okay, fine. Then why even bring them up in the first place?
I thought we had asked for that before, but
Well, we did, and we were turned down.
Of
So
course.
we need some encouragement from this group to make that happen.
All right, Commissioner Barrett.
I just had a question about the application, people that qualify for
Dana.
this, because Commissioner Thorne and I were on the same sheriff's update this week, and the numbers that they went through, I believe there was some number over 500 of probation violations or parole violations in currently at Rice Street, and like another 100 that were failure to appear, and those just not being a lawyer, or a DA or any of those things.
Yeah,
seemed
you're
like
not the
logical
DA.
places where ankle monitors could be applied. They were clearly out and are only back in because they didn't show up for a court date. I know we have the text strategy that we're working on, but it does seem like those would be a really good fit for ankle monitors, again, without going case by case and really understanding that. But is there a reason why that is not correlating nearly as well as it seems like it should?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, to be honest, and I don't want to speculate on the different policies or reasons why those folks may not have been selected in that initial list of 200 or additional conversations. I'm just not.
Boy, if I were on this commission board, I'd be like, great, bring me the list of names. I want all 500 from Tyrone to Josh. And we're going to sit here with the district attorney's office and go through every single one of these 500 names, since y'all can't find time to do it, prioritize. And I want you to tell me why this person isn't released. Jacob Fry, why is he still in? Oh, okay. Well, it's shoplifting. His bond's $50. Okay. Can we release him? Release him. It cannot be this complicated, guys. It can't. And he's saying, oh, I don't know. I have no idea.
Not privy to those conversations or to that at this point. But as I say, we have reached out, and I think we will continue trying to support and trying to get to the bottom of why we can't move a little faster on this.
It's because you don't
Do you know anything further on that, Mr. County Manager?
No, I was going to ask Benjamin, is that part of the jail population review exercise that Judge McBurney talked about yesterday or not?
Yeah, so there is. So the Jail Population Review Committee meets every 2 weeks, and they've been doing so, I think, for many months now. And so they have a list of folks that is referred to them. And so they work with Georgia Justice Project, PAD, and Superior Court. They have partners there as well. So they come together and they go line by line in a list of people and say, can this person be? Is this person, a good candidate for to have some sort of expedited release process.
Okay, so thank you. That's exactly what I would do. And you know what? It's not a priority. So that's why we're here. They don't freaking care.
Ankle monitors may be part of that, but that with the DA not being there and part of the Jail Population Review Committee, I don't know to what level they would be able to address ankle monitors directly.
They don't care. Insane.
But this conversation is a great example why getting to a single set of numbers that everybody agrees to, that you've talked about much previous to today, is so critical, because you get a memo about 200. You went to a meeting about 500. The committee may or may not have looked at either. And it's the tyranny of the anecdote. Somebody comes up with something and says it, and then we run that direction, and then we run back another direction. Meanwhile, Mr. Chairman, we're not really making substantive progress. No. So what Benjamin was talking about up front, I am encouraged by, even though it seems amorphous, but getting a data group that is representative of all different entities and getting everybody to agree is fundamentally a step one. And then getting the principals to assume ownership. And then lastly, to help at least report out to this group on monthly or whatever time frame you think most helpful.
Yes. You know what? We're going to start a rock. We want to start the rock. This is the release. I don't know what we're going to call it. We'll call it something. The release. I don't know. But we have to fix this to where we have somebody overseeing what is going on with release. So we have the release oversight committee. We'll call it ROC. Maybe that'll be ROC. And we just have someone who's committed to figuring this out, guys, because I'm sorry. I cannot hide my frustration on this, but this is affecting so many people. And I think it's sad for us to sit by and shrug our shoulders and say, oh yeah, we're going to put it on the agenda for every meeting now. What kind of threat is that, Rob Pitts? They don't care. It's not a priority. These 500 people that could potentially be released, I don't know what their charges are or how that's handled, but it's not being prioritized because only 15 have even been looked at from what we understand.
Yep.
Jeez,
Vice
man.
Chair.
Thank you, Chairman. I would formally ask that a letter comes from this body requesting the
Shout out to
presence.
Khadijah.
Because at the end of the day, Mr. McCarty can't answer that question. The county manager can't answer. And it does a disservice,
can't answer.
Chairman, for us to sit up and have these presentations and then questions, legitimate questions like the one Commissioner Barrett asked, and we don't have anybody here that can answer it. And so if we are really seriously talking about working together to make sure that this 5-point plan, I think a letter needs to go out respectfully. I don't imagine it would go out any other way, but let me just say what's on my mind. And I'm gonna say it again, and I'm gonna keep saying it over and over again. Before I got here 6 years ago, commissioners asking you to come and speak before the board is not a bad thing. It is an opportunity for you to say yay or nay, this is the reason for, this is the reason against. I do not run your department, so I need some input from your department. And this Fulton County as a whole, we have to get out of this thing of, oh, they asked me to come down. I remember when I had another situation where I asked for a person to come down just for clarification, and they talked to everybody but me, and they never came here because they automatically got in their feelings by it was something bad, Chairman. And I just want to talk about the elephant in the room. As commissioners and as being the mentee of Commissioner Darnell, she would call anybody down here at a moment's notice to just answer a question. And so for us to be a governmental entity that wants to work together collectively for the best of Fulton County, we need you to come and answer these questions. So I'm humbly asking, Chairman, that a letter be sent, and it be sent to say, hey, this question was asked, and there's other things that we need to ask you in reference to this, and would you please come before the board? End of discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, shout out to again, there's so much that goes on, so much more that's said during this meeting, but I can't take it anymore, guys. It's sad, frustrating to see people, they want to present a PowerPoint and say they don't understand why these folks are still sitting in jail. I mean, can you imagine watching this and you're in Fulton County right now and they're just like, yeah, I don't know what I got to do. Maybe they missed, I don't know, they violated their parole. We got 15 though. Oh, oof. Let me know what y'all think in the comments in the chat. To say the system is broken, it would be the understatement of the year. Yeah, shout out to Post of Pops. Blue cities and states broken, very broken. Yeah. Yeah, we're going to call it rock. The Release Oversight Committee. Rob Pitts, you heard it here first. If y'all bring it up, I will be happy to be the chair of that committee, oversee that committee. We need rock in place. The Release Oversight Committee or something. I don't know what. Y'all, thank y'all for the love. Shout out to my guy, Greg Dolezal, Senator Greg Dolezal, future Lieutenant Governor Greg Dolezal. Please make sure y'all get out and vote. Fulton County, I know you're watching. Go support the people who have your best interests in mind. Don't support them because they're black. Don't support them because they're white, because they're a sister, because they're a brother, because they ain't. Go support them because they have your best interests at heart. Because the other way, it's not working. It's not working. So make sure you stay involved. Make sure you stay up to date what's going on. If you haven't yet, subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss any time we go live or drop a new video. Everyone who's watching this, please, please, please subscribe to the Jury of Your Peers channel. We are going to be over there, and I'm actually going to be streaming what happened during court in the Ebony Parker case. So make sure y'all go there, subscribe if you could, please. And then last but not least, as always, y'all know what to do. Have a great rest of your day. Keep growing, keep pushing, keep it classy. We'll be back on Friday. Peace. Woo! Man, I gotta take a nap after.